Tournament season is upon us, and we're going to talk all about it on this edition of the Seacoast Sports Forum. Sherm Chester, and this time joined by special guest, Coach Jim Tufts, and an old-timer, a regular, Coach Bill Taylor. Welcome back.
A real old-timer.
No. One of the originals, let's put it that way. Well, gentlemen, special season upon us here. Bluehawk Nation's locked and loaded for the state tournament action. Just about all the sports this fall. The boys and the girls and unified soccer will be going into the tournament, field hockey, volleyball, and soon football. Before we go that far, let's just stick with those ones, the first ones I mentioned. And I want to start off with you, Coach Tufts. Now, having been the boys soccer coach for years, how do you adjust your focus for the playoffs? What's the secret sauce there?
Well, you start to zone in on a team. You start to say, okay, this is our next. Instead of being a journey and you've got 2 games that week and got to do a little bit for this and a little bit for that, now it's specific. Pinkerton's coming to town, you've played them, you know what they're going to do, you really isolate on them and you don't think about down the line. Mm-hmm. Think about we got one big game and you can start to really concentrate on them and what you want to do just with them and not a bigger picture, but a specific picture.
Now, we'll show the graphics of the tournament standings here in a second, but boys and girls, boys are seated a little lower than the ladies. The ladies on top of the heap.
Yep.
And perfect season, undefeated season, and they earned it. So, who has a bigger bullseye on their back going into the tournament?
Oh, Meg's got one every year. Meg's just done such a great job with that program, and everybody measures by her. Mm-hmm. And in the state of soccer and within the coaching ranks at Exeter High School, you just want to build your program as well as she has. And so I think she wears the target 24/7. Danny's had a great year, and his boys have had a great year, and they actually were tied for the 3, 4, and 5 were tied, mm-hmm. and the tiebreaker, he came out in the middle on the 4 spot, and that was a great regular season. But Pinkerton's a traditional rival, and winner will probably get Hanover, which is another traditional rival, and so they're thinking about just Kerry Bowles and the Pinkerton Astros coming to town.
One at a time, basically.
One at a time.
Can we throw that graphic up, Bob, for the boys soccer? We'll start with that one in the tournament, for the tournament action, and then we'll move to the girls. So, again, Wyndham, top seed, and run them down if you like. Bedford and Portsmouth will be going at it. Exeter against Pinkerton, Hanover Concord, Nashua South taking on Spalding, and then, Coach, why don't you take over that bottom end of the bracket, Manchester? I can't see it.
Memorial and Winnicott, North and Londonderry and Central and BG.
Okay, well, that's going to be an interesting tourney.
And I've seen almost every one of those teams through officiating or watching this year, and there's 7 or 8 teams there who could win. Eric Martins at Portsmouth's done a great job bringing that back, and Nick Rose got a good club down there, and so there's Central's, there's some very, very good teams, and that's not a gimme.
Not a gimme.
Isn't it interesting to me? Wyndham is a new addition has been a new addition in the past couple of years to Division I.
Correct.
And yet, you look, and Wyndham is the top of the heap in boys. I know they're in the top 4 in field hockey. I know they're doing really well in football. I assume, I don't know about girls soccer with Wyndham, but I do know that they obviously have a good program over there.
Great tradition. If you look, I think their baseball team in Division II went 2 or 3 years unbeaten. Hockey team won Division II before they moved up. So Mike Hashi is the head coach over there, does a great job. He played at Pinkerton himself and then played collegiately, and he does a great job. And not a surprise. They're big, strong. Again, athletically and tradition, that's a community with great athletic tradition across the board. So, you know, you got multi-sport athletes who are used to having success, and that's the norm. So they're a good club.
Let's take a look at the girls' bracket if we could, Bob. Okay, so obviously a bye for the top two teams, Exeter, Bluehawks, in I guess, northern tier, we'll call it, in the southern tier, Portsmouth, the Clippers. I'll go back to you, Coach Tufts. What do you think the road to get to the finals?
So the girls' program isn't quite as deep. In other words, you could say 7 or 8 teams in Division I boys have a legitimate chance, and I don't think that's quite the same in the girls' side. And it's kind of fun because Exeter and Portsmouth both had great success all season, but they weren't on each other's schedule, and so no one ever got to measure that. They both kind of went along and had great success, and you know, best case scenario is we see them in the finals together. Wow. Because again, Portsmouth women's athletics, you know, you go lacrosse, soccer, basketball, field hockey. You know, the tradition is the expectation is excellence, and it's across the board. And so that'd be great to see a Portsmouth Exeter final.
Yeah, it would be, and we're pulling for that. But like you say, on a given day, you got to focus on the team you're going to play. So that first matchup will be an important one. Let's go to field hockey. Now, I'm going to ask you a question about field hockey because you officiated field hockey in the past. But let's go to the setup here and take a look at the brackets. Winnacunnet will be taking on Dover, and the Bluehawk ladies will be taking on Wyndham. There again, you were mentioning, you know, and Deb Grott seems to have the team fine-tuned and ready to go. Any input on what you've seen there? Or?
Well, the big thing you've got to remember in field hockey, and I don't know if this is true in soccer, but you can answer the question. It's a big difference. It's a different game on turf than it is on grass. And when you play on turf in field hockey, that ball moves.
Yeah, it's quick.
And when you play on grass, at times it doesn't. So I think Exeter has an advantage because they're used to playing on turf, where Winnacunnet, I believe, just plays on grass.
Correct, and as does Wyndham.
Yeah.
However, so many of the girls play club
Right.
that they're on turf a great deal. And I think Wyndham Exeter was last year's final. So, you know, you've got a semifinal where Exeter came out on top of Wyndham last year, and who knows what plays into that. But Coach Grott, she does such a great job with those,
She does.
with that program.
And you know, the thing with
Eli, you can't leave out Eli, who's been her assistant associate, and they really they're playing great.
The thing with Coach Grott is when you talk to her, you don't know if her team is undefeated or if her team hasn't won a game because she is so even-keeled. And I think that translates to the way the girls play. They play even-keeled, they know what they need to do, and they go out and execute.
Yep.
And an outstanding coach, but one of the nicest people you'd ever want to meet.
I wanted to ask you and Coach Tufts about the officiating. Now, you are a soccer official.
Going to do a game today.
Yeah, there you go, busy man. And you have done field hockey in the past. And just give me some nuances of the game.
Well, I primarily did middle school, where coaches, you are at the high school level.
Yeah, high school and prep school, yeah.
So there's a big difference. middle school, they're learning the game, and you want to call enough so that the game is fairly officiated, but you don't want to be whistle happy
Right.
because they need to run and play and hit and
Yeah, you're being instructional.
correct.
Okay, okay.
And that's the difference, I think, at the levels. Would you agree, Jim?
Yeah,
And Jim, now, when it comes to regular season versus tournament time, do the officials tweak it up a bit, or is it just
They
same?
try to let the athletes settle the game. They don't want to be the reason that a game goes in either direction. So you try and let the athletes play a little bit and not swallow the whistle, but not be not over officiate.
Here's one thing that always bugged me, and in soccer, during the regular season, how many officials are there?
So it's two primarily.
Okay.
Now, a school can request to have a third.
Okay.
And if they're willing to pay it, so it kind of becomes a money thing.
Yeah.
So I would say 90% of the games, regular season, are two officials,
And in the tournament?
two until the semis.
Okay. In basketball, all season long, we went with two officials.
Right.
And then the tournament would come.
The triangle.
And even, it was three. And sometimes I felt, I mean, both when I was assistant and when I was a head, that some officials felt they weren't doing their job if they didn't blow the whistle enough.
You always enjoy getting experienced officials.
There you go. There you go. Good answer. I like that.
You always enjoyed,
Helps.
Yes.
and you could often say, I would kind of look at who showed up on a day and say, fellas, this is their tendency, and if you don't want to be on their radar, don't be grabbing a shirt, don't be giving them your editorial comment.
Right.
Don't, get the ball and hand it to them instead of knocking it away. And, just as we as coaches start to sort of get a reputation or a style, officials, some are players officials, some are coaches officials, some are, so.
One thing you don't want to have a coach say, oh, no, it's fill in the blank.
Don't want to be that guy.
You don't hear it often.
No.
But once in a while, and especially in the old days, and we go back a ways, some of the officials, whatever the sport was, they had character. So let's put it that way.
I think and I said this to somebody the other day, and this is a sort of historical perspective. Back in the 70s and the 80s, schools hired officials. So if I were an official, I would the athletic director would call me up and we would book games. Now it's an arbiter, which is much more fair, because when you were hiring officials, occasionally there was that call that always went the home team's way because that official wanted to go back there.
Oh, good
And
point.
they knew that if the head coach or the AD didn't want to see him, they might not go back to that venue. And so the arbiter has really, I think, improved officiating because you're not indebted to a school.
Yeah, you're not seeing the same face over and over and over
Correct,
and over again.
and my calls are not going to affect whether or not I go back to that school.
Gotcha.
And so I think I said this to somebody the other day, when we went to the arbiter and the officials designated a head official who was making the assignments, the officiating improved.
And you know something?
I was going to ask you about that.
Absolutely.
I was just thinking that and I'm primarily talking about basketball because I'm up close with the officials. You have officials that really enjoy coming to a venue. That's a good thing too. I mean,
Sure.
at Exeter High School, we're lucky. I mean, they know they're going to have a good contest. They're not going to have a lot of free-for-all, and they can, officiate a game. That's all they're there for. I did want to put up the graphics, Bob, for the unified soccer, and We got that coming up, and then also we've got to get the volleyball up there. So the Exeter Bluehawks take on Dover, and Keene will be taking on Oyster River, and then we'll have that game coming up on November 6th. I'll be there. It's a triple header that day. We have the boys Division I, Division II, and the unified soccer final that day. It's a Sunday, and it'll be a busy Super Sunday. So we hope everybody will come to William Ball Stadium for the tournament finals. And then we got the volleyball. Coach Kate has got the Bluehawks going up against Concord, and take a look at that bracket. Bedford got the seed, and Hollis Brookline taking the southern tier seed. So, what, gentlemen, have any idea on the matchups there, where that might go?
I haven't seen a lot of volleyball this year,
Neither have I.
but I'll tell you this, what a great fall at Exeter High School.
I know. Well, I was just going to say we're lucky enough.
You're looking at a lowest seed being a 4.
Right. Well, Bob got to go up and interview Coach Kate before the season started, and we've heard a lot of good things about a lot of the players, and so she's. I guess what I was going to say was that the coaching staffs at Exeter, and any school, but great coaching staffs lead the great programs, and results here obviously with the Bluehawks this year. But, with Coach Grott, Megan, Dan, Coach Kate, I'm leaving somebody out probably, but.
Coach Ball.
Well,
Coach
I'm going to go
Bailey.
there. Let's go there. We don't have any idea where we'll be in the tournament. And at this point, I would say we're going to be in the football
We're going to be in the
season.
football tournament.
But where?
Where? I don't know.
Yeah.
But, I think you mentioned about coaching staffs, and I think you would agree with this, Jim. Thing is, Exeter, because of the leading by the administration, allows coaches to coach.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to worry about, okay, Jimmy's parents are all upset because he didn't play, and Susie's parents are, mad because they're not getting,
Not getting time. Yeah.
playing time. But they let coaches coach, and they have faith in them, and consequently, you find that coaching staffs don't turn over very much.
And I think that's what makes Exeter stand out, is you look at the consistency of name it in the sport, that people enjoy coaching there, enjoy working for the administration, enjoy the enthusiasm and commitment of the athletes, and so they stay. And so, you're sort of, if you've only been there 20 years, you're a young coach. And we used to coach against soccer teams where it was a different coach every year, and guess what? They were the teams that didn't make the tournament. But, coaches, because they have the support of the administration and they make the commitment, the kids make the commitment, and the consistency is. One of my favorite stories was a guy named Jimmy Stevenson was at Central. So they get off the bus at the old school by the SST, and they walk by football, and they walk by field hockey, and they get the back corner where we are. And he gets there and he says, "Jimmy, how many kids play sports in the school?" And I said, "Well, probably this fall is probably around 500. He goes, "We got 500 in detention at Central." But, it's cool to be a student athlete, and you're respected, and that respect starts at the top, starts right at the principals that we've had, the athletic directors, Cass and Billy, and so it's cool to be a student athlete, and you do. And so it's a great place that when that athletic director, people say all the time, "Who's going to be the athletic director?" And I said, there will be more candidates than you could ever imagine because it's the best job in the world. Some days.
Yeah, some days, right. But, and the football thing, now, I want to get back to the football. As we wrap up the season, senior night against Manchester Memorial, the Crusaders, we don't know who our opponent in the tournament will be. But just from what you've seen, with the Bluehawks, and from your vantage point, is there anybody that you'd prefer to see us play, or see us play later in the tourney, or?
Well, you know what? I'm of the belief that if you are going to be the champion in your sport, you have to play whoever is in front of you. And it really doesn't matter when you play them. If you play them right off, or if you play them later. You're gonna prepare the same way. You're gonna get your kids, you're gonna share your scouting reports. You're going to, talk about your opposition. You can't be looking, you said it earlier, you have to take it one game at a time. You can't be looking down the road and say, oh, what is Londonderry gonna be like?
Right.
Or what is Nashua
North,
gonna be like? You have to hone in on who you are playing. And I know, because I coach with Coach Ball, I know that he's got them thinking of strictly Memorial and no one else.
Right.
They don't care who they're playing the following week. They just want to get Friday. Go out there, play to the best of their ability on Friday, and they should come home with a win.
I saw probably one of the best football games in a long time. I mean, talk about a slobber knocker, the game between Nashua North and Bishop Girton. And North, I mean, had about a minute on the clock, give or take, and the kid threw a bomb to his wide receiver. I think that was the kid's third touchdown for the game. I really don't remember what the final score was, but it was like 35-28, I believe, something around that. But what a game. And I mean, those were two teams that were like heavyweight fighters slugging it out. I would just say one of those two teams, I'd love to see the Bluehawks go up against. If you're going to go after the best, take on the best.
That's what I think. I mean, I have no idea who they're gonna play in the playoffs. I don't know
Right.
where we're gonna finish. I mean, I do know we shouldn't, again, I will say this, the NHIAA has not done a great job of updating the standings, so you don't get a clear picture. You have the schedules, but for example, we know that Pinkerton played Brockton 2 or 3 weeks ago
Right.
and lost. Does it reflect in the standings? No, they only have one loss.
Right.
And we know they have more than one. So I would say the worst we can be still is 9. I don't think that will get us a home seed in the first round. But again, there are a bunch of teams that we have the same record. Our records are the same. And it all depends on their seeding as to home and away and all that stuff,
And on a given night.
Yeah.
Or given day.
So,
Yeah, anything could happen on a given day. On one note about football, we were talking about coaching staffs. I want to congratulate the class of 2022 in the Hall of Fame for the NHIAA, Coach Skip Swazinski.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
Oh, that's
Excellent.
great.
Coach is
That's
going to
awesome.
be put into the Hall.
That's awesome.
Yeah, well deserved, well deserved.
Yes.
Let's stay on football for a minute. Did we put, we did put the Unified up. I just want to
We
make
did.
sure. We did put
We
that
did.
up. Okay, good. And one other note before we get off schoolboy and schoolgirl sports, I just want to mention that the leader for the championship, what we hope is a string of championships this year, obviously the Exeter golf team. What a season, 27-0 in the regular season, and just dominated not only in the tournament play for the state title, but also in the individual play. So congratulations to Coach Bailey and all the team, and we are going to get those guys on
Awesome.
in the near future.
Yeah.
We're setting that up, so I'm looking forward
Couldn't
to
have been
that.
any better.
Let's stay in football, and let's go to the pros. Okay, where do you guys sit on this Zappy thing? I mean, the game that just happened as we recorded this was the Chicago Bears on Monday Night Football, embarrassing the Patriots. As far as I was concerned, it was an embarrassment. They decided to go with Mac Jones. Belichick said he's healthy, we'll put him out there. For some reason, after 2 or 3 sets of downs, he pulled him out, put Zappy back in. Zappy looked good for the first couple of downs. First he got 2 touchdowns, and that was it. And then all of a sudden, the game fell apart on him. And Mac had his helmet on the sidelines, waiting to go back in, never happened. Did Bill Belichick create a conundrum there by doing what he did?
Who's going to read Bill Belichick's mind?
I watched his press conference after the game, and I mean, he was very, well, his usual self,
He never
surly
answers
self.
a question.
To me, I said to somebody, we were over at UNH doing a soccer game, and we were talking. I said, this is almost a good thing. You have two young quarterbacks who can complement each other. You don't have that Vinny Testaverde or some old timer you drag out of the retirement home to be your backup quarterback. You've got two qualified young quarterbacks. Mac Jones, you sell them the fact, hey, Mac, I want you 100% when I put you out there again. I don't want you going out there sliding and screwing that knee or leg or whatever up again. I want you to be healthy. So he could have put Zappy in that little game the other night, and that way we would have seen, Zappy do whatever he was capable of doing and not have to worry about, is Mac coming in? Just spell it out. And half of a game, maybe, that was the other thing.
I think they were told that they were both going to play in the first half.
Mm-hmm.
Here's my thing. Here's my take. And I watched the game. I finally gave up on it at the end, but there was only like 2 minutes and something left. It was simple. Our quarterbacks, Zappy and Jones, are young.
Mm-hmm.
They are learning how to be professional quarterbacks.
Right.
The worst thing that ever could have happened last night happened. Jones was booed off the field when he threw the interception.
Right.
And then Zappy came in. The thing is, Mac Jones is an outstanding player.
Mm-hmm.
He showed it last year. Zappy is too. But they are young quarterbacks. They are not finished products.
Correct.
Like Tom Brady, like Aaron Rodgers, like Mahomes is now. They need to learn the professional game and their reads. The reason we lost is that they tried to do too much. That's when Jones threw the interception instead of either keeping the ball and running or throwing it out of bounds. Or Zappy, all of a sudden, after getting the Patriots back into the game, they had a turnover, but the defense couldn't get Chicago off the field. How many third downs
Set a record.
did
Chicago
they,
did.
yeah, how many third downs did they convert?
I think it was on a stat this morning at ESPN. I think it was 11 out of
Yeah.
14, which was the most ever.
Right. And some of them were outrageous amount of yards. I mean, 25 yards at one time, and Fields runs it for 26, and they get a first down. So, to me, then Zappy decided he's got to take the game on his shoulders, and he isn't there yet. He might never get there, or he might. I don't know. But I thought the worst thing that ever could have happened is for Jones to be booed and then replaced.
Yeah, I wouldn't have taken him out until, unless he was hurt in that first half. I would have left him
And
to
a
play at least a
perfect
half.
example to your hypothesis is Josh Allen. Josh Allen wasn't a great quarterback for a couple of years, and now all of a sudden, he's tremendous, but he
Right.
grew. I don't think Jones was physically ready to play.
Yeah.
I don't think he should have played. I think that after that mistake, I think Belichick sort of went, you know what, he's just not ready physically, and that's why he didn't put him back in.
Yeah.
That's
I just,
complete conjecture.
yeah, well, I didn't like the fact that it almost stirred up a controversy, or kept the controversy rolling about who's going to start.
The talking heads are
Zapp-
going to stir up that controversy.
Right.
anyway.
Zappy feud, yeah.
Right, and they're gonna stir it up, and
Yeah.
it's gonna be, and some fans are gonna want Jones there, some are gonna
Yeah.
want Zappy, and it's,
If you watched the Tom Brady, he did that 12-part thing on ESPN, Man in the
I didn't watch
Man
it.
on the
I
Field,
get
or whatever it's
Brady
called.
to death.
I started watching a few episodes of it, but the thrust was when he took over for Drew Bledsoe. Bledsoe felt that when he was qualified to go back in.
yeah,
And the old axiom is, if you go out injured, you're entitled to go
lose
back
your
in.
job.
You don't lose your job, right? So this is going to be interesting. I can understand if Mac had hurt his leg last night and said, or gee, I'm really sore, I don't think I could do it, or whatever. Or if they saw something and said, we got to protect our investment, which you're seeing in any sport now. Shift gears. What about the Celtics? 3-0 to start, and then all of a sudden they play the lowly Bulls and get whacked.
Well, honestly, I didn't watch the Bulls game, so I don't know, because I was watching football.
Right, I was too.
I watched the Celtics.
Did you?
Yeah, and they put up 42 points in the first quarter.
Wow.
Matt was in the other room watching the football game, and he's a huge Celtics fan. And I said, Matty, they just put up 42 points in the first quarter, and then they laid an egg.
Am I correct, though? Did they get hammered? Didn't they get hammered on the backboards?
I think so.
Vucevic had 23 rebounds.
Yeah.
Right. It's not fair to judge the Celtics right now until Robert Williams comes back.
I agree.
And I think Stevens has done a good job. He's got a different philosophy than Danny Ainge did. Danny Ainge was always looking at the young guys, the young guys, the young guys. Stevens said, the back of our bench is going to be veterans, with the Blake Griffins, people like that who might.
Not the Brogdon. That was a great pickup.
Brogdon is.
Malcolm Brogdon was a great pickup.
Yes.
And I feel, good for the young coach that was kind of thrust into the position that he got off to a good start, because they're again, in Boston, everybody wants to, get the lynch mob out as soon as they lose a couple of games in a row. And
sure.
at least he bought it, even though they had a stinker the other night against the Bulls, he's bought himself some time. And I think the team is pretty
I
solid.
have a question for you, Jim, because I assume you watched the Bruins.
I have.
That's
Okay.
where I was
I
going
have-
next.
Okay, now, the new coach, I was shocked when Cassidy was fired, but the new guy who has come in, Montgomery, seems to have them playing a little more carefree
Yep.
and go, 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 go.
Yep.
Maybe not quite as sound defensively as.
That's why they gave up 7 in Ottawa.
Yeah, you're right. But how do you get a speed game in hockey?
Push the puck forward as much as you can. It's just like pushing the ball up. You get the rebound and you go. And you get the puck and you go. And so I think, I was surprised they fired Cassidy, and I'm not sure, I think it was justified. And I was really happy for him to see him get back to work.
Right.
I think there were 2 real knocks that I saw. One was they were tremendously defensive oriented. So if you didn't come back and defend, you didn't play.
Right.
And I don't think he was great in development of young players, i.e. Jake DeBrusk wanted out of town.
Right.
And he's flourishing now. And I don't think he gave the younger kids quite as much rope. So I think there's 2 things. One is I think it's get the puck and go. And so the defensemen don't have to be worried about being tied to that goal. And the forwards don't have to worry about so much of defensive mentality. It's get the puck and go, and let's play in their end more than theirs. And so I think, A, they're going to have a great regular season. Now, B, when it comes to the playoffs, the game changes. And it becomes a little more defensive-minded. And that's where we're going to find out what the pudding is made out of.
What about goalie this year? What do you think?
So I think Allmark is going to really flourish into a really good NHL goalie, and I think Swayman is too. But he is in his sophomore season. He gave up 7 the other night in Ottawa, and Cassidy might have sent him to Providence, but I think that he's going to be a legit NHL goalie too. So I think they've got 2 number ones. Okay. And I think Swayman's going to work his way into it. I think he had great promise last year. So it's that sort of sophomore slump with the quarterback, the shooter, that second season. So I think he's going to struggle a little bit right now. But come March and April, they're going to have 2 number ones.
I want to double back. I brought up UNH sports a few minutes ago, being over to UNH, that is. And first off, the football team, if people haven't been paying attention, the Wildcat football team is on a roll. And in the CAA 5-0, big win over the Elon Phoenix this past weekend. And now they got a bye week, so they get to just kind of rest up and get ready for the rest of the season. They got still the meat of the season to go. And it seems like Coach Santos has got that team focused, and the players are now, it's not just feeling each other out. They've got a pattern down now.
Did you know that they're ranked in both polls? They're ranked as high as 19th in one poll. And it's the first week that they've been in the top 25 all season long.
And I think
So
they're
they've
gonna
made
stay
it to
there.
19.
No, they're going to stay there, I think.
Yeah.
I think, it was not a rebuilding program, but it was just a different, or a change of philosophy of sorts, because.
Would you say it's the same up-tempo change that we just talked about with some
Yeah,
of the others?
yeah,
that
I do
that
believe so,
they-
yeah, and situational
Which
things.
was the kind of player he was.
Yeah, exactly.
He
Yeah,
was,
exactly.
let's put up more points than they do, and
He had a freshman quarterback that in the booth with Sam Bruno, and like, who's this guy? He went in, filled in for Brosmer, quarterback, and ran a touchdown. Just a kid named Kleinpeter from Georgia, another Georgia product. And, maybe he will be the next coming after Brosmer moves on. But just the fact that was a situational move I liked. I like stuff like that keeps the defense on their toes. But another couple of sports at UNH, and I know you're familiar with the men's soccer and the women's soccer, tournament time for them too coming up.
men's soccer has a huge game tonight. They're at Vermont, so Vermont was 11-1-1 going into last weekend, and they stumbled. They lost at UMBC. So they've actually got a loss in the conference. But Vermont, UNH tonight up in Burlington is the top two teams in the conference. So it's Mark Hubbard and the guys have a huge win tonight. But, they struggled early on trying to find their identity, and their out-of-league play was 500, I think. And part of it was personnel. Not everybody was dressed yet. And now that I think they've won 9 in a row. And they're playing pretty well, but tonight's a big one.
Yeah.
Tonight will, I think, essentially, the way they do the tournaments is the highest seed hosts the semis and the finals. So I think tonight's going to make that decision. And playing it in Durham versus playing it in Burlington is going to be huge.
Wildcat, keep that place hopping, for
Yeah,
both the
Mark
guys
Hubbard-
and the
Mark
gals.
Hubbard and his staff.
I
just
haven't
done a
talked to you about
tremendous
this
job.
sport for a while. NASCAR. Where we stand, brother?
Well, it's been an interesting couple of weeks in NASCAR. First of all, if you don't follow the sport, Bubba Wallace was suspended
Controversy.
a race for intentionally wrecking Kyle Larson and perhaps Larson, because he was intentionally wrecked, his car shot to the middle of the track sideways, so he could have been run into and suffered serious injury. They also knocked out, neither Wallace nor Larson were in the final 8 right now, and they knocked Christopher Bell from about 4th to 8th now, and he has to win this weekend.
And he's Watson's teammate, right?
Right,
Right, so his actions cost his own teammate.
right. And, did I think Larson squeezed him? Yes, he did. But did that warrant Wallace just blowing up? It was still early in the race, a lot of laps to go. He took himself out of the race and the next race. Now, another one is Cole Custer, and the Stewart-Haas team has been fined and penalized because when they get to the Custer, they say deliberately slowed down and held up the field on a road course so Chase Briscoe could make the top 16 and qualify for the playoffs. Did he do that? Honestly, if you watch, I watched the race, and I watched the replay, and I really focused. I don't know if he did, but they obviously have the communication. So one thing about NASCAR, there's nothing secret. I mean, you can sit home and have the headsets on and listen to what's going on between driver and pit crew. And they feel that the communication was there, that Custer had to slow down to make sure that his teammate got in. So that's brewing now.
Who do you think is going to take the,
I know who I would like to see be the champion is Logano. Because I'm a Penske guy. I've always been a Penske fan. I'd like to see Blaney win to get into the Final Four. Right now, it's Logano's qualified. The other three spots are open. Chastain, Chase, Elliott, and there's one more, and I forget who it is. Byron, William Byron. So those are the four that are in, but the other four still have a shot. And NASCAR playoffs are also interesting because you could be out of the playoffs like Larson was and win last week's race.
Win a race.
So, yeah, I mean, they're in Martinsville. The bad thing about Martinsville is the track doesn't really encourage passing. It's very difficult to pass unless you use your bumper and knock somebody out of the way. So I think there's going to be a lot of hurt feelings and a lot of carnage with torn up race cars Sunday in Martinsville.
2-minute drill time. Coach Tufts,
Well,
what do you got for us?
Well, I would have gone back to UNH soccer tonight. Again, Mark Hubbard and his staff done a tremendous job with that program. And part of that is, they're a nationally ranked program with 5 NCAA tournaments in a row, but they're doing it with national and international kids and New Hampshire kids. He's got a couple of New Hampshire freshmen in, and he's got a couple of Concord kids in his starting lineup, and Mark has brought that program to a highest level it's ever been, and he's doing it
The right way.
the right way, especially if you're a New Hampshire high school
Right.
coach or a kid. You can say, I could perhaps play there, and so I'm rooting for him tonight up in Burlington.
Coach,
My 2-minute drill is a sad one because I just learned this past week we've lost 2 of Exeter's outstanding athletes and over the years. One is Peter Williams, who was a great lefty baseball pitcher and was my point guard in basketball, and a character, a great person, very intelligent. He just passed away. And the other is Marty Stoller, who was a 3-sport athlete, played baseball, basketball, and football. And, the thing is, they're not forgotten by the true Exeter followers of Exeter athletics. Those guys will never be forgotten.
And you said they were tremendous athletes, they were tremendous people.
Yes, they were.
They were tremendous people.
and I'm going to throw my 2-minute drill. I'm going to add to that. We lost a tremendous teacher, but also a Hall of Fame member of the Bluehawk Hall of Fame when it comes to hockey. One of the original coaches of the hockey team,
That is
Peter
correct.
Clark.
That is correct.
Peter Clark was probably one of the nicest teachers, and going back to my day as a student there, one of the ones that stuck here, and I always had respect for the man. He was always upbeat, always had time for you, and I do not play hockey, so I didn't have him as a coach, but maybe you, Coach Tufts, could talk about Pete.
And so I've known Peter since I was a kid, and Peter Clark grew up here in the 60s, we both grew up in the 60s, But in the mid-'60s, Cornell hockey was one of the premier programs in the country. And part of it was they were up near the Canadian border, and they had no Americans on the team. Peter Clark played Cornell hockey. Peter Clark was one of the few Americans who played at Cornell in the 60s. And you're talking about Kenny Dryden and some of those people. So he was a great athlete. His dad was a football hockey coach at Phillips Exeter and renowned. And Peter, great skater, and did some time in the Peace Corps prior to teaching. And then came to Exeter, and Bert MacArthur and Jim Houston had been the foundation of Exeter High getting hockey in the late 60s, and they played their first season in 68, 69 with Denny Houston, and that crew was the first team. And Peter Clark came on and was Bert had him sort of as a club program, and Peter took over as the head coach and was that guy. And had success in the mid-'70s with Dana Barban and Johnny Chakowski and Chippy Jocelyn and the Montvilles, and that crew went to the semis, and I'm going to get in trouble if I don't mention my brother Peter, right? Got to the semis and then got to a finals. And, he moved up to do other things at the high school, and I was very fortunate to be able to come in and succeed him. And I was glad when he moved up, and I was glad to move over, and just a great person.
He was. He was.
Great person.
Great teacher and a great coach, and a member of the New Hampshire Legends of Hockey in the Hall of Fame when it comes to the Bluehawks. So our thoughts and dedication of the show to our
great people,
our Bluehawks, and especially Coach Clark. Gentlemen, appreciate you being here today.
Always a pleasure.
On behalf of Coach Jim Tufts and Coach Bill Taylor, I'm Sherm Chester. You can listen to the Seacoast Sports Forum on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget to watch the episodes of the Seacoast Sports Forum on our Seacoast Sports Forum YouTube page. And when you're there, hit the bell to subscribe and like us. And if you have any sports photos or game videos you'd like to send us, or comments, seacoastsportsforum@yahoo.com. This is Sherm Chester inviting you to join us for the next edition of the Seacoast Sports Forum.